Okay. Hello, everybody, and good morning and welcome. This is the regular meeting of the Mason County Commission for April 23rd, 2024. We are going to begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Surjai, would you do us the honor of leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner District 1, Randy Netherland.
I'm here.
Commissioner District 2, Kevin Schutte.
Here.
Commissioner District 3, Sharon Trask.
I'm here.
Okay. Next up is item number 4, correspondence and organizational business. Do you have any correspondence to come before us today?
I do. We have Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board sent in the following. Notice of liquor license application for the Hardware Distillery Company, DBA Flywheel, cannabis license renewal applications, liquor license renewal applications, and special occasion liquor license for North Mason Rotary Club. We had an advisory board application received for the Housing Authority from Peter Lazarenko. Sorry if that's wrong. We had a letter from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission regarding 2023 EAP updates, Cushman, Nisqually River, Cowlitz River, and Wainuchi projects.
Excellent. Next up, item 4.2 is staff recognition. We have a specific award that we get when there's a public recognition of our staff when they've gone far above and beyond their regular work, and we try to take the time to recognize them. For the moment, I'm going to go ahead and ask Peter if you will stand up, if you would like to say just a few words about your folks before, and what this award is, please, before we come down and recognize them.
Well, the outside award is the Washington Defenders Association President's Award. Washington Defenders Association is an independent group of public defenders. It consists of essentially everyone that runs public defense offices and works within a public defense office or has a public defense contract within Washington State. The President's Award is their top award for the year. It is the award that essentially singles out the best public defender that the state of Washington has. Back in, I believe it was 2018, Ron Surjai, who's present here today, was the recipient of this award. And I don't believe we, as a county, ever acknowledged that. This year, and in fact, on Friday night, Rose Boughton, one of our deputies, is receiving the same award. This is pretty huge for Mason County Public Defense. Just for comparison, King County has one recipient of this award working for them, and they have somewhat more public defenders than we do. And so for us to have two on a per capita basis, such like we have, is a really strong showing of the strength of Mason County's Public Defense Office as a whole. Ron and Rose are both incredible attorneys. Ron is probably the spiritual backbone of the whole office. And Rose is one of the best and most aggressive young lawyers I've ever seen come out of the gate. And so having them both, having been recognized for this and now having the county also recognize that, I think is well worth our time. And from that, I'll leave it to you.
Okay. Could you join me down in front so that we can have these two together? So ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you both stand up, please, so that we can recognize you. Ron, you first if you may. On behalf of Mason County, we want to present you with the Green Star Award for your dedicated service to Mason County and your commitment to excellence. On behalf of the whole county and myself, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been an honor serving Mason County.
Always good to see a fellow Yinzer make it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rose Broughton. Again, people may not recognize, but we don't give these out very often. This is a wonderful opportunity, and we want you to know that we're proud of you. And we're here to present you with a certificate and also a Green Star. The Green Star is awarded for your dedication to service to Mason County and your commitment to excellence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure working here. Thank you, thank
Congratulations.
you.
Peter, we want to thank you too. Obviously, it only shows on those that bring them in, right?
Ron was here before me, so I guess I get credit for that one.
Okay, so you get half credit.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 4.3, Mental Health Awareness Month Proclamation. Guess it's you? Yeah.
I can take it if you want.
Mark, he's gonna go ahead and take it.
Mental Health Awareness Month, May 2024. Whereas Mental Health Month has been observed since 1949 to raise awareness of mental health conditions and the importance of mental health. And whereas we are all affected by mental health, and 1 in 5 Washingtonians experience mental health conditions or substance use disorders, or both, each year. And whereas 50% of all people with mental health conditions experience them by age 14, and 74% by age 24. And whereas increased focus on the prevention of mental health conditions and substance use disorders among children and adolescents through screening and early intervention helps improve lives. And whereas people with lived experience of mental illness or substance use disorders get better, live in recovery, and provide invaluable knowledge of how to improve and transform systems of care. And whereas greater trauma-informed care and peer support services are needed to support and facilitate recovery. And whereas the stigma against mental health conditions remains one of the greatest barriers to improving the lives of all Washingtonians through better mental health. And whereas Washington is dedicated to becoming the healthiest state in the nation by ending stigma and focusing on the integrated role of mental health in all our lives. And now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Mason County Commissioners hereby proclaims May 2024 as Mental Health Awareness Month in Mason County to highlight the critical role of the county in providing crucial behavioral health services and resources to its residents and to commit to partner with community members to ensure that all mental health services are accessible, valuable, and culturally appropriate for all residents. Signed this day, April 23rd, 2024.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next up, item number 4.4, Public Works Week Proclamation. Loretta.
Oh, no, I don't have the
I've
proclamation.
got it. Would you like me, do you want to just take it?
I'll borrow it. Thank you, Mark. Good morning, Commissioners. Loretta Swanson, Public Works Director, and I'm here to celebrate upcoming Public Works Week. And the theme for this year, every year they have a theme, and this year's theme is Advancing the Quality of Life for All. Whereas Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of people of Mason County. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of Public Works professionals, who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Mason County to gain knowledge of and to maintain a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2024 marks the 64th Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now therefore, be it resolved, that the Board of Mason County Commissioners hereby designate the week May 19th through the 25th, 2024 as National Public Works Week. Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, and the next one's a really long one, and I heard that Mark really wanted to do this one, so I'm gonna go ahead and appoint you to go ahead and take item number 4.5, which is Eric Johnson's proclamation.
Just before Mark starts that, there's a lot of jokes and things that are in here that are very much relevant to our state association of counties that probably won't make sense to a lot of people that are listening, so just, this isn't Mark's fault.
Well, and I would love to do it, but I don't see it on my electronic agenda, so let me see if I can find it. Kenzie, can you help me please?
I'll be right back.
I might have it in my email, hold on. Do you have a copy of it up there?
I'd have to look at
Where
it.
did you go on?
You're going there too, you found it.
I found it. It's right
It's not in mine. So I can't read it for you.
Oh, this is exciting, isn't it? Can I sit right there?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mark him dropping it, let me see if I can drop it. Oh,
There you go.
won't let me.
As you can tell, it's fresh off the presses. He's retiring, and he should be recognized for all the work, because he's been the head of the Association of Counties for many years.
And prior to that, he was I believe, a Lewis County Commissioner.
Yep.
Thank you. So I'll stand up and read it for him. So thank you for your patience, Commissioners. Mark Neary, Mason County Administrator. I have a proclamation for the Washington State Association Director, Eric Brian Johnson Day, May 31st, 2024. Whereas Eric Brian Johnson, born May 1st, 1959, to Ralph and Marilyn Johnson, and whereas Eric Brian Johnson was rumored actually to have been born on the planet Krypton and sent to Earth in a small spaceship that landed in the countryside somewhere in Lewis County, Washington, where Ralph and Marilyn discovered him. And whereas Eric Brian Johnson, while growing up, also showed a unique interest in sports and athleticism, excelling in team sports and individual achievements, eliciting some rumors of superpowers amongst the regulars in the local barbershop. And whereas Eric Brian Johnson even enjoyed a short stint as a lead guitar with the Beatles, playing live on stage with her group during a short concert at the County Leaders Conference. Whereas unfortunately, the early superhuman athletic success in sporting pursuits did not continue into adulthood, especially in his golf game, nor did his gig with the Beatles. The rumors that Eric Brian Johnson was the real Superman subsided as they weren't true. Whereas Eric Brian Johnson chose to focus his super skills on serving the needs of counties of the state of Washington, first running for and winning 2 terms as Lewis County Commissioner. His platform included a promise to provide free burn barrels every year to every resident. And whereas Eric Brian Johnson, after his resounding political success, then turned his leadership skills toward working with the Washington State Association of Counties for nearly 19 years, 16 years as executive director. Whereas Eric Brian Johnson has chosen to step down as WASAC's executive director effective May 31st, 2024. And whereas every county in Washington state will be forever grateful to Eric for his steady and unwavering leadership to counties during good times and challenging times, for his fierce advocacy and support for county government issues, and for his wise and thoughtful counsel to several generations of county commissioners, council members, councilors, and numerous other county leaders. Whereas Washington State's counties, WASAC, and its staff have benefited enormously from Eric's generous service and guidance. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mason County Board of County Commissioners request the citizens of Mason County join them in celebrating and honoring the service of Eric Brian Johnson and proclaiming May 31st, 2024 as Washington State Association of Counties Executive Director Eric Brian Johnson Day in Mason County, adopted this day of 2024.
Thank you. Could you imagine having cocktails with people that are writing this afterwards? It'd be
Yeah.
an interesting evening, I can assure you.
Yeah, so very tongue-in-cheek, very applicable to Eric. Eric is a super great guy and has served us very well. I've appreciated Eric's leadership in many different facets throughout my career, and super proud of what he was able to accomplish. So thank you for entertaining this.
Thank you. Do we have any other correspondence come before this commission? Okay, thank you. The next up, we're gonna move to item number 5. Item number 5 is our open forum for citizens' input. Now, I want you to understand, this is only for issues that are not on the agenda. For example, if you're here for a hearing or whatever, and wanna talk about that, that'll come up at a specific time, you'll have an opportunity to talk on that. But if you have an item that is not on the agenda that you would like to speak to the commission and the community about, this will be your opportunity. There'll be 3-minute, you'll be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes, but please keep it brief because there's a 15-minute maximum, and we don't know how many are gonna be on Zoom. With that, I will call on you in the room first, and if you would mind, please come to the podium and tell us your name and perhaps where you're from.
Sandra Cunningham from Allen. I have a question. Can we get a copy of your numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s? So we'll know when it is a time for us to properly speak?
Our agenda?
Yes,
Oh.
sir.
Can somebody provide her with a copy of the agenda?
No, all of us.
Yeah, we usually have them here, so I'm sorry that they're not there this
Yeah,
morning. We'll get
we'll
you
take care of
copies.
that right now.
That's the first question. And what's number 5?
5 is this. 5 is this public comment period that's not specific to anything that's on the agenda. So if you're here for the
So
rate
we
setting-
don't know what's on the agenda, so we can't decide if we're supposed to speak.
No, we will let you know. When we open the hearing, we'll definitely make it known what each item is as we're going forward. But they'll get you an agenda for you. Is there anybody else in the room who would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? We can wait for a moment and get you a copy. What's on the agenda is we have many different action items that we go through, which is our general doing of work. And we're gonna go ahead and we will put all those, we'll read them to the public before it ever goes out. So if there's something in particular that you would like to talk about, that is basically not the sewer or the water, now would be your opportunity if you would like to talk about it. We'll let you know if it's on there. I don't think it will be. Seeing none, is there anybody out in Zoom land that would like to speak on an item not on the agenda? We also post the agendas as well. Okay. If you're on Zoom and you would like to speak, please unmute yourself, say your name, and I'll call on you. Okay, we're gonna give a moment for those that are in the audience to look at the agenda. That was a mistake, huh?
Can I get one of them? I'm just kidding. Have one.
You will see the hearing is at item number 10, 10.1. Okay, now that everybody's had an opportunity to look at the agenda, is there anybody who would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? I will ask again. Yes, sir. Please, we'd ask you to come up and announce your name and perhaps where you're from.
Yeah, my name's Daniel Hanson. I live in Union, Kevin. And I didn't see it on the agenda, but I heard that it was gonna be on the agenda to talk about regulation for short-term rentals.
Today, after this, we will have a workshop where we're gonna be talking amongst the commission. Nothing will be passed today, we're just talking about it and doing a workshop, but that's after.
But you,
Okay.
if you wanted to make comment on it now, you
You
could.
can, yes.
Yeah, I've had a short-term rental for 10 years in Union. And I'd ask the commissioners to think carefully about regulations for this, because there are many people, as you know, in Mason County, that it's a rural and a resort community. So there's some very high-end homes that are occupied or not occupied. And there are people that are earning supplemental income from these short-term rentals, whether they're in their home or adjacent to their home but not occupied and just available. The other thing I want to point out is, from what I read in the draft, there needs to be some, I believe, some different tiers of regulation for someone that just has a one-off small cabin that's on the same property as their residence, versus someone who has an unoccupied home that they're renting it out all the time, and it might have 3 or 4 bedrooms. It's a totally different situation. And so, that's my comment, is just
thank you.
be careful with regulating small people out of business.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on an item not on the agenda? If so, yes, please.
My concern is
I-
not
I-
on here.
I need you to please come forward.
I
So,
know. Glancing over this,
and this is Sandra from Allen.
yes. At the meeting, which was held in our area, what, a week or 2 ago? I asked a question, and I didn't receive an answer at that time.
Are you talking about the utility rates and stuff?
Yes, I am.
That will be on item number 10.
Well, I'm looked down there, and I did not see something about the sewer system.
Yes,
So,
it'll be for both, the sewer and the water,
Okay,
and utilities.
and you'll get to that at 12 o'clock or 1?
No, we'll get to it probably in about another 15 minutes.
That would be nice.
I don't think we could agree more.
Okay, is there anybody one more time online that would like to speak on an item not on the agenda? Please unmute yourself, say your name. Hearing none, I'm gonna go ahead and move forward to the adoption of the agenda. Before we move for adoption of the agenda, I'd like to include the removal of item number 8.2 because it is a duplicate, and item number 8.17 from the agenda, so that we don't have to remove it for a separate vote.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move adoption of today's agenda with those amendments.
I will second.
It has been moved and seconded for the adoption of today's agenda with the amendment of removing item number 8.2 and item number 8.17. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next up is item number 7, which is approval of the minutes. We have no minutes before us today, so we're going to go ahead and move on to item number 8. Item number 8 is approval of the action agenda. All items on the action agenda will be read to you in the public, and you'll be given an opportunity to ask a question on whether or not you want to have it removed for a separate vote. If you'd like to have further discussion on it or testify on it, we will just ask you to have it removed, and then you'll be given that opportunity to testify. With that being said, we will read them all into the record and give you that opportunity right afterwards. I will read item number 8.1 through 8.6. Commissioner Schutte, could you read item number 8.7 through 8.12? And Commissioner Trask, if you would please read 8.13 to the remainder 8.19. Item number 8.1, approval of warrants and treasurer's electronic remittance. Claims Clearing Fund, warrants number 8103333 through 8103776. The amount, $1,160,725.90. Direct Deposit Fund, warrants number 104547 through 104958. The amount, $885,081.62. Salary Clearing Fund, warrants number 7007981 through 7008017. The amount, $1,189,367.90. We removed item number 8.2. Item number 8.3, approval of letters of thanks to the 35th Legislative District Delegation, the Honorable Senator McEwen, Honorable Representative Couture, and Honorable Representative Griffey during the last session. Item number 8.4, approval of a thank you letter to Republic Services for the years of long-haul solid waste transportation and disposal services. Item number 8.5, approval of the volunteer policy resolution. Item number 8.6, approval of the request for Jesse Ogden for the defense and indemnification coverage assigned by the county as named defendant in U.S. District Court, case number 2:22 CV 00636 DGE DWC.
Mr. Chair, item 8.7, approval of the resolution declaring Mason County a Sasquatch protection and refuge area. Item 8.8, approval of the interagency agreement with Washington State Noxious Weed Control Board, fiscal year 24, Class A and B designate noxious weed eradication program, and for the chair to sign the grant questionnaire. Item 8.9, approval of amendment number 1 to interagency agreement contract number K4369 between Washington State Department of Agriculture and Mason County and its Noxious Control Board for an additional $2,000. Item 8.10, approval for the commission point of contact, Commissioner Schutte, to sign the Johnson & Johnson opioid settlement. Item 8.11, approval of the county road closure of Satsop-Clallam Road at approximately milepost 5.2 from August 19th, 2024 until August 30th, 2024 for culvert replacement. And item 8.12, approval of a resolution amending resolution 2022-092, increasing grinder pump fees for North Bay Case Inlet and Belfair sanitary sewer system.
Item 8.13, approval of the health officer contract with Dr. Stephen Krager to provide health officer services for Mason County. Item 8.14, approval for the chair to sign interlocal agreements for Mason County Public Works reimbursable work, supplies and services with Central Mason Fire EMS, West Mason Fire Authority, Hoodsport Fire and EMS, Mason County Fire District 12, and Grapeview School District. Item 8.15, approval to reallocate the remaining $50,000 ARPA funds from Mason County Fiber Upgrade to Mason County Sheriff's Office Command Vehicle Upfit. Item 8.16, approval of Emergency Housing Fund Amendment B to remove $60,000 of unspent funds from Mason County admin so reallocation can be provided to other communities in need. Item 8.18, approval to amend Resolution 2024-002, Salary Commission. Item 8.19, approval of Consolidated Home Contract number 24-46108-20, Amendment B, for reallocating $215,000 to Community Action Council to pay May and June rent for enrolled households.
Now that the items have been read to the public, this will be your opportunity to ask a question that would help you to decide if you want it taken off for a separate vote so you can have a separate discussion. If not, if you know you want to take it off for a separate vote, then we'll ask you to say that as well. But the first part is a question. Is there anybody in the audience that has any questions regarding any of these issues that would help them to decide whether to take it off for a separate vote? I see none in. Is there anybody in Zoom land that has any questions regarding any of the items just read that would help you to decide whether you want something taken off for a separate vote? Seeing none. Commissioners, are there items that you would like taken off for a separate vote?
Yes, item 8.7.
Do you have any?
I do not.
Okay, is there anybody in the audience has any items they'd like taken off for a separate vote? Seeing none, is there anybody in Zoom land that would?
Randy.
Yes.
Question, what is taken off for a separate vote mean?
That if you want to take it off for a separate vote, then we would have discussion on the issue itself, and you'd have an opportunity to testify on that issue if you want. Other than that, it just goes through as one motion to pass it all.
The whole thing?
Yes, not including section 10, that's a utility hearing, that's different.
Okay, question. The grinder pump fee, raising it, wasn't in the material we received at our other meeting. I don't know what that's going to involve.
Okay, would you like it taken off for a separate vote, and then we will have a full discussion on it?
Okay,
Okay.
I will request that.
That's good, that's how this works. So what item number is that?
Well, item 8.12.
8.4. Okay. Is there anybody in Zoom land that would like an item taken off for a separate vote? If so, please unmute yourself, say your name. Is there anybody on Zoom that would like an item taken off for a separate vote? Unmute yourself and say your name. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion, minus 8.7 and 8.12.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of today's action agenda with the exception of item 8.7 and item 8.12, which are removed for a separate vote.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded for the approval of the action agenda with the removal of item number 8.7 and 8.12. Any further discussion or comments? Okay, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The motion is carried. First up, item number 8.7, approval of the resolution declaring Mason County a Sasquatch Protection Refuge Area. Who would like to take that one? Is that?
I think Commissioner Trask, and if you could also read the resolution.
I would be happy to read the resolution.
For everybody here, we have some guests joining us from Lincoln Elementary in Hoquiam.
Go ahead and unmute yourself for a second so we can hear you and say hi. I want to hear the kids. There you go.
Can you hear us now?
Yep. Hi, kids. Okay, go ahead.
All right, just want to say, this is super exciting for me. We received a letter from Miss Andrews' class, the 5th grade class, asking us to make Mason County a Sasquatch safe zone. And so I would love to read the proclamation. Got the letter from them and I was just so super excited about this. I love Bigfoot, so. Declaring Mason County a Sasquatch Protection and Refuge Area. Whereas legends, sightings, purported recent findings, investigation, and recognition by various counties support the notion that Sasquatch, also known as Bigfoot, Yeti, and giant hairy ape may exist. And whereas if such a creature exists, it is not flourishing, giving this very unusual event of being sighted, and it is very likely an endangered species, and is subject to great harm and extinction if it continues to be unprotected. And whereas Mason County desires that its citizens recognize the need to protect Sasquatch if it does truly exist, and now therefore be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Mason County hereby declare Mason County as a Sasquatch Protection and Refuge Area, of which all citizens of the county are asked to recognize and honor. Dated this 23rd day of April 2024. And I just want to say, I looked diligently for Sasquatch so that I could invite Sasquatch to come in. And I couldn't find him. I looked under every tree, in the bushes, everywhere, but I was not able to find them. So there's proof that we need to protect our Sasquatch.
She confused me for him once, and I told her I'm not him, but it's all right. I don't blame her. Is there anybody in the audience that has any questions regarding the motion that's about to come forward here on this item? Yes, please. Yes, please.
So my name's Dan Bernig. I live here in the county, and I just am confused as to how you define a Sasquatch. If this were to come to some kind of legal action and it went to court because some farmer has had, as we can see now, the grizzly bear and the wolves that have been reintroduced into the state, the control of such an animal for a large rancher could be very difficult if somebody were to invoke rename it a Sasquatch. I mean, you could name almost anything a Sasquatch, 57 Buicks, whatever. So I think there's a little confusion. You would need more detail as to the nature and the exact legal definition of a Sasquatch before you could approve it.
Thank you.
As well as the other three names.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to ask any questions regarding this item? Is there anybody in Zoom land that has a question regarding the item? Then I'm gonna go ahead and open it up for public discussion. Is there anybody in the room that would like to discuss Bigfoot and the protection area? Is there anybody on Zoom that would like to discuss Bigfoot and the protection of Bigfoot?
Okay, Xander, what would you like to say?
Come on up to the camera, please, so I can see you.
Stand up, honey.
There you go. Speak loud. There's a lot of people waiting to hear from you.
Bigfoot is an endangered species and it needs protection because there might be other animals that want to harm it for like stealing its crop, stealing its food, and other.
Keep going.
Bigfoot would protect it, would try and protect itself, and it would fight back if you tried to harm it, because it's trying to not get hurt. And Bigfoot doesn't attack people that often.
Thank you, Xander.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that would like to testify at this time?
If I remember correctly, Mason County has 24 sightings of Bigfoot here in your county. And I believe that if we were to say allow hunting of Bigfoot, what if those 24 sightings, what if some of them were actually real? Then we could be diminishing the population just in Washington itself. Not even speaking of just your county, everyone. So if we were to hunt Bigfoot, it would take away the population of them, making it even more endangered, allowing us not to be able to preserve the majestic beauty of the Bigfoot.
Well done. Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to testify before we go for a motion? Hearing none, I will close the deliberation and the public testimony and look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the resolution declaring Mason County a Sasquatch Protection and Refuge Area.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded for the approval of item number 8.7, the resolution declaring Mason County a Sasquatch Protection and Refuge Area. Any comments?
Yeah, just a word of thanks to Miss Andrews and her class, as well as the other fifth grade class at Lincoln Elementary for joining us this morning. This is a great way for kids in classrooms to learn more about our local government processes and how to engage with elected officials. And we have a room full of people here who are also doing that. Some of them are a little bit older than fifth grade. So hopefully, we're able to use these opportunities to build good civic-minded citizens in our communities. And just great job, Miss Andrews, and to your whole class. Thank you.
Thank you, you guys. That was awesome. I'm so glad the kids got to come in and see how it all works. So
Thank you.
they're super excited.
Commissioner, did you have any last comments?
No, well, I did look up the definition of Sasquatch, and it is a hairy creature like a human being, reported to exist in the northwest U.S. and western Canada, and said to be a primate between 6 and 15 feet. Also called Bigfoot. But I want to thank you guys. I sent your letter on to our legislators as well, so let's see if they'll pick it up, and let's see if we can get get them to do something at the state level as well. But thank you guys so much for participating.
Thank you.
As one of the members of the audience pointed out, I did fit that description, so that's all right. But with that, you may not know this, but Mason County actually is well known for this. We have a group of that, in Mason County that you will find all over on the Discovery Channel and stuff. Derek Randall's and his group do quite a bit from throughout Mason County, and his first sighting that he ever had was Lake Cushman area. So it's actually pretty well known for Mason County is for this, so it's an interesting, and I want to thank you for bringing it forward, because we did have fun with it. To the commission, we have a motion, we have a second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Next up, item number 8.12, approval of resolution amending resolution 2022 and increasing grinder pump fees for North Bay, supposed to be North Bay, not North Bay's Case Inlet and Belfair Sanitary Sewer System. Richard.
Grinder pumps, yeah. These are only for when somebody's gonna build a house and a grinder pump's gonna be required. It's just the actual cost it costs for us to purchase those pumps from the manufacturer. So that is all it is. We are getting down to our last one that we have available. We've solicited quotes from the only sole source supplier in the state. And that's what they came back with, is their price for 2024.
And so you're having it adjusted to meet the new pricing?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience that has any questions regarding what was just presented? Yes, sir.
How is that gonna affect your replacement costs for your grinder pumps?
This is actually just that first time up front when you're gonna build a house cost. We also solicit annually to buy in bulk the replacement. That way you have to buy more than 50 replacement pumps at a time to receive a bulk price discount from the manufacturer. So
that has nothing to do with.
That has absolutely nothing to do with any of that.
Any other questions in the room regarding the testimony that was just given by our staff? Hearing none, is there anybody in Zoom? Ken Van Buskirk, I see your hand. Would you go ahead and identify yourself and please tell people your name and where you're from?
Hi, Ken Van Buskirk. I'm from Belfair. I'm curious, Mr. Dixon, did you have this information when we had the hearing up in Belfair?
It may have been coming in about the same time, Ken, but like I said, this is just for new construction where a person is required to have a grinder pump.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious if it would have been nice if that would have been presented. There weren't a lot of people from Belfair that attended, but I'm sure they would have liked to have known that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
You bet.
Is there anybody else on Zoom that would like to ask a question of staff regarding his presentation? Hearing none, is there anybody who would like to testify? Yes, please.
I'd like to say thank you for giving us the information. It helps to think about what's going on.
Thank you. And that was Sandra from Allen. Is there anybody else that would like to testify on this issue? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of item 8.12.
I'll second.
It has been moved and second for the approval of resolution amending resolution 2022-092, increasing grinder pump fees for the North Bay, Case Inlet, and Belfair Sanitary Sewer System. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Excellent. Next up is item number 9, other business, department heads and elected officials. Are there any department heads or elected officials who would like to speak to the commission or the public at this time? Mr. Auditor, would you please come forward?
Whoa. Good morning, Commissioners. Steve Dunkel, Mason County Auditor. Just want to remind everybody that today is Election Day for the April 23rd special election. We've got two measures on the ballot, the merger of Fire Protection District 3 with Fire Protection District 5, and also the Fire 16 EMS levy. So I want to encourage everybody in those jurisdictions to get out and vote. We'll be posting initial results shortly after 8 p.m. this evening. And for those of you who are curious, just gotta let you know, Bigfoot is not registered to vote in Mason County. So, that's all I got, thanks.
All right, thank you. Is there any other department heads or elected officials who would like to speak at this time? Nobody in the room. Is there anybody in Zoom that is a department head or elected official of Mason County who would like to speak at this time? Unmute yourself and say your name, please. I see none. Okay, we will move forward to item number 10, which is our public hearing. We will open the public hearing to consider changes to Mason County Code, Chapter 13, Utilities and minor updates to Chapter 2, 3, and 17. Presenter is Staff Richard Dickinson.
So I'm gonna try and share my screen.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'll start off. So, just a little background. Board suspended all 2024 CPIU rate increases set by Chapter 13 MCC Mason County Code during the annual budget process to engage customers more fully about their utilities and rate settings. Meetings were recently held with Beards Cove, Belfair, North Bay Sewer, and Russellwood Water and Sewer customers. While informative, customers requested the following: provide a more definitive proposal of what staff is recommending, provide more detail on planned water and sewer projects, provide water customers with consumption history to determine what their individual rate may be, and give customers more time to digest the information above so they can provide more informed comments to the board. Additionally, many customers had suggestions for improving ratepayer equity. Staff targeted June 1st for new rates to go into effect. If additional time is given to address the items above, the next earliest effective date would be July 1st. So there's your background. Budget impact, I think I'm gonna back off and let my director take over.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Loretta Swanson, Public Works Director. In terms of budget impact, we've identified a need, looking at our various financial criteria, for rate increases anywhere from 4% to a whopping 311%. And that's strictly looking at making sure that we're able to cover our operating costs, making sure that we build and continue to have an operating reserve, a capital reserve, so that as we have need to make capital improvements in our utilities in the future, we've got the ability to match grants. It's also making sure that we are looking at equity amongst ratepayers, and then establishing an affordability target. So those were the criteria that we were looking at in terms of rate setting. We know that a 300 and some % rate increase is probably going to send us all out in Sasquatch land. So that's part of what we're here today to talk about, is what is reasonable to get us towards meeting our financial objectives, but also not taking one giant jump right out of the gate. I would like to talk a little bit about the outreach, a little bit more about the outreach that we spent. So we did have our hearing notices. We had some Facebook notification postcards that went out to our customers. We emailed the Homeowners Association, and there were inserts in the last billing. And then there were community meetings. Despite that, again, we heard that it was short notice, and this is a lot of information to digest, and folks were wanting to learn more and hear more. And let's see, I think that is about it in terms of just I guess the other thing that I would like to do, if I could for a moment, Commissioners, thank folks that at the outreach meetings provided comment at that time. We also received emails and questions, and I know the clerk of the board received quite a few communications from folks. And if I may, I would like to just give kind of a real high-level summary of what the types of comments were. It's not meant to be detailed or this person provided this specific comment, but just kind of a roll-up of what folks were saying. So we had quite a few comments from the North Bay customers, and they're by far our largest utility, so that's to be expected. And some of the common themes from North Bay were that future capital needs should be borne by the new users. So there was a feeling like we've already invested, we're paying for our long-term debt, our operating. If we've got new construction needs or replacement needs, that should be borne by the new users. One customer said North Bay is paying for a debt, the existing debt, and that they should be commended. They've been a healthy utility, and that's great. Another observation was that CPI, so we currently increase rates based on the CPI. CPI, cost of living, and our COLAs for our labor costs don't necessarily always jive, so they're kind of out of sync, and there was that observation. Sewer should be based on water consumption. This was a theme also heard from the Russellwood community, that folks felt equity was figure out how to adjust sewer rates based on consumption, water consumption as well. We also heard from, again, all the utilities that there are folks that are either seniors or on fixed income or low income, and is there some way to provide some type of assistance to folks that are in that situation? And some folks made the observation they felt that their rate was high when compared to other utilities. And then we did have in North Bay an individual or some folks that said they would increase the rate and felt that it was important to be able to plan for the future and provide some stability. Russellwood, we heard concern about the water quality and a need to say, if we are doing a rate increase, what specifically are we proposing to make sure we're addressing water quality? We definitely heard in the meetings some concern in some isolated areas about low water pressure. And again, sewer rates should be based on water consumption. One individual wanted to know, what have you done to audit to improve efficiencies? Are we doing everything we can to make sure that our operational costs are contained and we're managing as best possible? Many folks are advocating for a tiered system for the water, feel that that is an equitable way to go, that folks that are using more water should pay more than those who aren't. And again, a need for a clear understanding of how any increase would be spent. So what are we doing with this money? Belfair also, folks concerned about being on a fixed income. And then in Beards Cove, we had an individual wanting to know, what if we just don't use water? We're not there, we've shut it off. Is there a rate for zero water consumption? So that's just again, kind of a quickie, not meant to be all-inclusive, but I think captures the general themes that we heard from both meetings and emails and comments that we've received so far.
Would you mind adding into your presentation an explanation of the separation of the utilities and how budget
Absolutely.
and revenues and expenditures are done, and also the auditing of the individual?
Yep. Yeah. So some of the, I guess, one of the things that our utility customers perhaps did not necessarily understand is that each of our utilities are operated as a separate enterprise fund. So folks that live in North Bay, for example, pay their sewer rate into a specific fund, the North Bay Utility Fund, and any expenditures that are made for the North Bay utility come out of that fund. And North Bay folks pay for North Bay services. Belfair folks pay for Belfair services. Each of the individual utilities are operated that way. Russellwood for some time was a combined fund, as in the water and sewer utility was combined. And in the last, I believe, 2 years, it was more clearly separated so that it was clear what water operating costs are and utility operating costs as opposed to a shared pot, if you will. So there's that. And then I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Audit?
Oh, the audit, yes. So every year, there's year-end reporting that occurs. And so not only do we do monthly, and in some cases daily reconciliations of revenues and expenditures, but then there is also the year-end report that is submitted to our auditor. And then they're also an internal check for our books. And then outside is the state auditor that comes in on an annual basis and reviews all of our financials and makes comments, asks questions, and yeah.
One more
Yes.
audit findings for Russellwood.
Yes, so both Beards Cove, or excuse me, I apologize, Belfair and Russellwood, we prepare fiscal notes every year. And that is because we are not operating as a balanced budget. And so for the Belfair utility, the county prepared a financial plan to make sure that we were steadily moving towards an improved financial position. And I believe it was last year, Commissioners, that the state auditor said, "You're there. Continue your work." So we had a very distinctive plan that moved us to that position. Russellwood has not moved the dial, and so that's part of why we're here today, is what is our plan to improve our financial position for the Russellwood water and sewer utilities.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? Not at the moment. Is there anybody in the audience who has a question for staff regarding the presentation that was just done? If you want to testify, you will be given an opportunity to testify afterwards. This is solely for the questions of the presentation that was just given. Is there anybody? I don't know if we'll be able to see on Zoom. Can you?
If they raise their hand, it should come up to the top.
Is there anybody in Zoom that has a question to staff regarding the presentation that was just given? Again, if you want to testify, you'll be given an opportunity afterwards. This is just for question of staff's presentation. If so, unmute yourself and say your name. Hearing none. Thank you. I'll go ahead and move into to testimony.
And Commissioners, also, we do have more detailed financial information to present, or more detailed information on the recommended capital improvements, so however.
Would you like to do that now? If you'd like to do that now, if you're prepared, I'd rather you go ahead and move forward with it.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna introduce our finance manager, Stephanie Berman.
Hi, Stephanie.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
While Stephanie's getting ready, one of the things that I'd like to add, so as an accountant by trade, you know, when you look at how do you present information to people, I love to actually dive into details, and often told, boy, you really need to bring it up a little bit because individuals will get lost in these details. So one of the exciting things that I have seen over the last couple of weeks is some of the comments that we received from individuals is they actually want to see those details. So I think that that's definitely information that we can provide. Be happy to sit down with individuals and go over specific details of how we and what we spend our money on for these utilities. So just excited that people are interested in some of those details because it is important.
Thank you.
And we have sent out financial details to several requests at the Public Works. Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Stephanie Berman from Mason County Public Works. I'm the Finance Manager. This morning, Mason County Public Works will be presenting our recommendations for mid-year 2024 utility rates for North Bay Case Inlet Sewer, Belfair Sewer, Beards Cove Water, and finally Russellwood Sewer and Water. The board suspended all 2024 CPIU rate increases set by Chapter 13 to engage customers more fully about their utilities and rate settings. Feedback, you heard feedback from Loretta, was they wanted more definitive proposals. So customers were given multiple scenarios. They were given an all-in equitable portion of what it would take to run their utility. We gave them a scenario where it was based on the median household income, affordability factor of 2 to 2.5%. We gave them a rate based on the prior method of calculating, which was CPIU, and in 2023, for the 2024 year, it would have been 6.9%. We gave them a combination of rate increases needed with continued county grant and loan support. And finally, water rates were based on the basic rate water consumption of up to 700 cubic feet, and with 2 tiers from 700 to 1,200 cubic feet, and then the second tier above 1,200. Customers requested more details on planned water and sewer projects, and customers wanted consumption history to determine what their individual rate would be on their water. This information was provided at our front desk and also provided by email to some customers that have requested it, on top of additional financial details. And a mailer will go out soon estimating what customers' water rates would be based on last year's consumption. Customers expressed concern of rising prices for our vulnerable seniors living on a fixed income, and staff recommends that the board look into RCW 3694-140, which authorizes the counties to provide assistance for low-income persons, such as seniors who qualify for property tax discounts, exemptions through the senior and people with disabilities. If members of the utility qualify for the county program, it would be proposed that maybe a 10 to 20% discount could be offered to those. Currently, we were able to determine that there were 60 customers that qualified for North Bay Case Inlet currently, 34 in Beards Cove, and 8 at Russellwood. Slide 2. The objective of this meeting was to provide a public discussion of the public meetings were to provide public discussion on how these utilities must provide sufficient revenue and financial stability to meet operating and capital expenses. Slide 3. We begin with North Bay Case Inlet. North Bay Case Inlet has about a little more than 1,400 ERUs or customers with a max capacity of just over 2,350. They are at about 61% of capacity. At the beginning of 2024, they had a healthy fund balance of more than $2.2 million and an operating budget of $2.8 million. They have future 10-year capital expenditures estimated to be more than $13 million. Next. Here we see North Bay spends about 58% of their budget on operating expenses, 35% to capital, and 7% to their current debt. We gave the customers at this meeting an all-in rate of $165 per month. So if we took our budget for the year and divided it by the ERUs, they would pay $165. Next. To discuss capital improvements for North Bay, I call Deputy Director Richard Dickinson.
Thank you.
I call.
I've been called.
Sorry, Richard.
Put your hand on the Bible. Raise your hand.
I have trouble left, right-handed, not sure. Okay, so, yeah, this plant, this utility is a little over 26 years old. It's got some things that need to be done. One of the first things we're gonna do is update the general sewer plan. We don't even have one on file because it's been over 26 years. It's completely out of date. And that is happening. Victor Creek main replacement. This was a kind of an unexpected project that came up.
we have a franchise agreement with Department of Transportation, and they're gonna replace a culvert with a bridge, and so we're required to move and replace our line that's there and hang it on that bridge. So that was something that just came up. Also this year, we're gonna replace some of the probes that are at the treatment plant that help us with our process control, so we know what's going on with the facility, we know what the concentrations of solids are within the process, and dissolved oxygen levels, and helps us do our mad science work out there. We also have the computer control system is very, very old and antiquated. It's still functioning, but imagine you have your computer at home is Windows 7. If we start upgrading some of these components, they have to tie back into our computer control system, and it has outlived its useful life by quite a ways. So that's kind of what we got going on this year alone at North Bay. Upgrading, we also have our tertiary treatment there, which is a final treatment for reclaimed water. And also commend yourself. This is one of the first 3 reclaimed water facilities in the state of Washington, long before Oregon even got going on it. So it's really old technology. The tanks that are they're within, they're steel. They're suffering corrosion, as you would imagine. And, we don't know exactly if that's the technology we'll replace. That's part of what the plan upgrade this year is gonna help us determine. Is there something that will give us more capacity within the same footprint? Those kind of questions will be answered this year, and hopefully we'll be able to move forward reasonably. Then we don't have a whole lot planned after that until like 2029, where we're pretty sure we're gonna, well, we definitely know we're gonna have some capital growth in the area, or some just plain growth with North Bay and Lakeland Village. And so we have to plan for that at the treatment plant as well. So part of that will be planning and designing what that upgrade will be. And also associated with that is our spray field capacity for the reclaimed water we produce sufficient enough to handle that much growth, or we have to purchase more land, we have to go with another technology there. So that is, these are placeholders for that kind of planning and level of effort of work. And then after that, you can see there's some money set aside to construct necessary facilities that would be required. But it's all dictated by growth.
So Commissioners, since we're doing it separately, do you mind if I go ahead and allow for them to ask questions separately as they go? Any objection? Okay. So this is a presentation on this part regarding the North Bay system. If you have a question regarding the presentation that was just given during regarding the North Bay system, please raise your hand and I'll call on you and we'll have you ask the question of them. No? Is there anybody out in Zoom land that has a question for staff regarding the North Bay system, the presentation that was just given? Again, if you want to testify, you'll be given an opportunity later. If so, unmute yourself, say your name. Hearing none, okay?
Hello?
Oh, go ahead. Hi, Phil.
Yeah. Hello, yeah. This is Philip Wolf from Allen. And as I mentioned at the public meeting, I actually helped set up the timber sale, which then became the North Bay treatment plant. And I've been very impressed on how the system's been
Phil,
run. So many
Phil,
times that, but
Phil,
if you want to,
I need to get your.
If you want to increase
Phil Wolf,
the spray,
can you hear me, Phil?
The spray fields.
Hey, Phil.
I
Phil.
would think you could get either a no-cost lease from DNR because the water would benefit the trees. So I don't know if there would be a cost there.
Okay.
That's my only comment.
Thank you. Again, I want to clarify, this is for questions. You'll be given an opportunity to testify. Is there anybody that has any questions regarding the testimony that was just given? Yes, sir.
What is this year's maintenance cost for North Bay, specifically Lakeland Village? I know you replaced a pipe up there and some pumps. So what so far are our running costs for maintenance? North Bay.
Oh, you do have it on the
Yeah.
thumb drive?
Okay, it's gonna be email, Excel, and then there should be a North Bay contact. Move that out so we can see which one's North Bay. Oh, thank you.
So for 2024,
Go here. He's asking specifically for maintenance.
maintenance.
Yeah. Sorry, I apologize.
While they're looking to answer that question, again, is there anybody else that would like to ask a question of staff regarding the testimony that was just given? Yes?
I've got a quick question that's been bugging me for quite some time. Richard mentioned the 2007 operating system and followed that up by going, well, you can imagine your own home's operating system being that old and antiquated. And to the layman, yes, you could probably think that way. However, there are many operating systems still in operation that are operating on the green screen DOS. It's out there. These operating systems were meant to last a long
Is there a question?
time. My question is the operating system still viable and working?
It is currently, it is still currently operating and viable with the electronic components that hook up to it today that enable it to talk to each other.
Correct.
That's the only thing, yeah.
But if we were to upgrade, is what you're saying, if we were to upgrade, then it may require, being able to communicate with the system, the new stuff, may
Right,
not be able to?
right, yeah, so that's just anticipating that. Such as dissolved oxygen probes, to total suspended solids probes.
Typically 4 to 20.
They're to 4 to 20 millimeters.
Are they also Ethernet?
Could be.
Could
And
I-
that's what you want?
If I could give a quick example, sir. In Belfair, we had a water break during the freeze, took out part of our SCADA system. And so as a result of that, the upgrade for that, there was no new or no old components. We had to end up upgrading the entire system. So that's the issue, is a vulnerability, basically.
Which is
If and when, yeah, if and when something like that occurs, it's a complete upgrade. And so we need to be ready for that.
PLC or a RUG system?
Yeah.
I know you were RUG system before.
Could we have your name for the record?
Helmuth Seymour III.
Thank you.
Perhaps we can talk later?
Did you get that number for
I
us?
did. So it looks like we have a budgeted amount of 600,000 this year for maintenance items, and last year's actuals were 582,000.
Thank you.
The big parts of that are repairs and maintenance of 140,000 and grinder pumps, 150,000.
Any other questions for staff regarding the presentation? One more time in Zoom land. Okay, go ahead with the next one.
We'll have to jump us.
We're good.
Commissioners, and just a time check, because I know you have another hearing.
We had another,
Are you
no, we had
okay
another
on-
meeting, that didn't have another hearing, that started 15 minutes ago.
Okay.
So, just wanted to check on
No.
pace and detail.
Well, and
Are
if
we
you could
okay, or-
simplify that, that would
Absolutely.
definitely help, but yeah.
Yep.
But they're entitled to the individual information if they
Yep.
get it. Go ahead.
Great, thank you.
We'll jump to slide 11.
You're there?
I'm
Is
on
that one?
6. Slide 11, you'll see them in the top upper corner. All right, so next we'll look at the Belfair Sewer Utility. There are 620 ERUs. The Belfair is currently at 70% capacity. The fund balance at the beginning of this year was 3.6 million, with an operating budget of 3.5. The 10-year outlook for capital improvements is an estimated $11 million. Again, I'll call
You can call me?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay, here we go. Here's a rundown of our capital improvements. This facility, as many of you may or may not know, is not nearly as old as the rest of them. This is a fairly new facility, but it's a new facility. It was a very advanced facility. We've had a lot of staff turnover during this time, so there's been a lot of deferred maintenance that we've been catching up on. So just to kind of preface it with some of that with this. And some of these improvements that are on this 10-year capital have already been done, so that's a good deal. So this first year, it shows Pump Station 1, Pump Station 3 improvements. I have accomplished those already, and I apologize, I had not had time to update this capital improvement plan. Feed forward pumps, those are viable. That's that. If we don't have a feed forward pump, that is a pump that's within the treatment plant itself that transfer all of the flow from one process to the next. If you don't have those, we're done. I mean, the plant is down. So those are viable, and there's 4 of them total. You can see there's money in there to rebuild 2 of them, not replace, because that is very cost prohibitive, and they would be in a rebuildable condition. So that's why we're doing that. This is also another one where, well, the dissolved oxygen probes, everything is completely out of date and not. Some of these are non-functional. Same thing, replacing control screens, the airflow actuators. There's been a lot of just deferred maintenance over the years just because of the complexity of it compared to the other facilities. And then also we've got that's just this year. Then we have to plan in replacing filters. They have a lifespan on them, and basically we're going to be replacing them like every 4 years to 6 years, depending on how much life we can squeeze out of them. That's something that's yet to be determined. We got to go by manufacturers' recommendations on what they say the lifespan is, but it's something that we monitor on a daily basis, the performance of that treatment plant and all of its components. We got big things coming. There's just some things that are replacing leaky seals on pumps and stuff. That'll be pretty much catching us up on the deferred maintenance. The membrane replacements, those go on in perpetuity. And then what's really Belfair, it has experienced some growth in the last few years, in the last year really, if you haven't noticed. And that will bring us up to where we're going to be getting close to the capacity of some of the parts of that. The spray field and the reclaimed water, that's going to be a big one. And we got to figure out what we're going to do with that. And there's a lot of interested parties in what we are going to do with that. So that's going to take some time and discussion and planning and just a lot of outreach, and hopefully we can come up with something that makes everybody happy. And then I'm just looking, we've got some other big items on there. 2030. I gotta look and see what this one is. That's possibly in the north end, a freight corridor pump station. But still, a lot of this stuff is based on growth to the best of what we have knowledge for, and like that freight corridor pump station, that would be something we would be putting a placeholder in there because that's when we believe it would happen.
Is there any more you'd like to cover on the rates?
Yeah.
On that system?
So I'm gonna circle back to North Bay just for a staff recommendation on where we would recommend that rates be on North Bay.
Before you do that, commissioners, I was told this morning you may want to hold off on any of those decisions today. Do you need this information now? Recommendation, or you want to wait until on its table, or you?
I would be open to hearing a recommendation.
Okay,
for sure.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go back to North Bay Case Inlet. So, additionally, staff heard customers during the opening meeting discussions about customer equity. There are about 65 duplexes in North Bay Case Inlet, and they pay a discounted rate of $174.80, which is $87.40 per duplex. That's a 70%, that's 70% of the current rate. Staff recommends that all ERU residents pay the same equitable rate, and we are asking staff to hold the North Bay Case Inlet sewer rate at $124.86.
Okay. Belfair?
And then for Belfair, they were given, let's go to, how about slide 14?
Okay.
Thank you. Again, we looked at the affordability on each of these utilities, and we stayed within a 2% index. The current rate is $100.80. The affordability index is $110.54, and we had an all-in rate of $536. So that was the three rates that we gave. We gave the next. The first scenario that we gave was a rate of $107.76. This was an increase with CPI to 6.9%. Next, this was in line. This was in line with prior CPIU calculations. With this rate, the board and staff would still have to work to secure more than $11 million in grants and future debt obligations to cover future capital expenditures. Next, we gave an alternative scenario where there was a commercial customer rate and a residential commercial rate. And so we provided information at that public meeting also. Next. Staff proposed a 5% increase, a decrease in the commercial customer rate at 105 and an increase in the residential rate to the maximum or the median household income affordability rate of $110.54. The board and staff would again work to secure more than $11 million in future grants and debt issuance to cover future capital. Next, staff recommends increasing the rate to the $107.76. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Any questions, commissioners, regarding the presentation? Anybody in the audience have a question of staff regarding the presentation that was just given regarding the Belfair sewer? Yes.
When you said duplexes, is that the same thing as condos?
I'm not positive.
Condos pay the same as a single-family resident.
Okay.
So condos now pay the same as a single-family residence, not 65%.
Not 65%.
So that plus the duplexes are the same.
That's what we were proposing.
To the commission.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions in the room to staff regarding presentation? Any other questions in the room for staff regarding presentation? Hearing none, I'll move to Zoom. I see Ken has his hand up. I'll go to him first. Ken, do you have any questions for staff regarding the presentation that was just given?
Yeah, yes, I do. On page 13, the capital improvements, it showed a placeholder for both a south connection and an old Belfair connection. Is that in 2024?
No.
No.
Where is it at on the graph?
It is out past 2033.
Yeah, it's not on.
They're saying, if you can't hear them, that they are scheduling that at this time out past 2033. Is that what I heard?
Yeah.
2033.
Okay. Yeah, couldn't match up the, thank you for clarification.
You're welcome. Is there anybody else in Zoom land that would, has any questions regarding the presentation that was just given? And again, this is regarding the presentation. Either raise your hand or unmute yourself, say your name, and I will call on you. Hearing none, go ahead and move to the
All right, next
system.
we'll be moving to the Beards Cove water utility, slide 20. Currently, there are 474 ERU customers out of 521 lots. This represents 91% of the community being connected to the water utility. The fund balance at the beginning of the year was just under $1 million, with an annual operating budget of $356,000 and a 10-year capital improvement budget of nearly 3.4. Of the $356,000 budgeted in 2024, 46 is operating expenses, 52 for capital improvements, and 2% to pay back the USDA loans for water meters. The equitable portion for each customer for this utility would be $62.54.
This one's a little more simple. So, actually, it shows a 2023 on there. That work's gonna happen this year. We're gonna be replacing some isolation valves and some actual pipe, the aging AC pipe. And we've got a target for this. This is gonna be the intersection of Larson Lake and Larson, where the road is experiencing some issues. And it's most likely due to our leaking pipes and our isolation valves. So that's happening this year. We're also updating the water, gonna update the water plant finally, and, cause that hasn't been done in a long time. Other ones that we're gonna be also taking on is, we'll be inspecting the reservoir in 2025. We'll be planning to repaint the reservoir in 2027. And then the rest of this is just replacing isolation valves. We've got, I bet it's upwards of 80 isolation valves out there. And then the AC pipe will follow after we get the isolation valves replaced. I mean, just in that way. We're not gonna replace all of the isolation valves and then go out and replace the pipe. It'll be areas at a time.
Okay, thank you. Recommendations?
The next slide, we looked at affordability. The affordability rate was about $123.63. Rate to operate the system is only $62.50, and our current rate is $44.32. So then next. New in 2024, staff is working to implement the new water meters for to monitor consumption. Staff proposed scenario number 1, an increase of 11% to $49.23 for the base rate for the first 700 cubic feet. From 700 to 1,200, we have tier 1 at $2.50, and at over 1,200 cubic feet, we're looking at a tier rate of $4 per 100 cubic feet. A review of historical water consumption in the area showed that 61% of customers are using under the 700 cubic feet. Tiered water pricing encourages conservation and helps recoup expenses that high usage customers place on the aging system. Next. The graph shows the board, shows that the board and staff will continue to secure more than $2.1 million in other funding opportunities for future capital improvement. And a second scenario was given where staff proposed a 20% increase in the basic rate, but offering a lower tiered rates. Next. But again, board and staff would continue to secure more than $2.1 million in other funding opportunities. Next. Staff?
I want to clarify, we will endeavor to.
Endeavor.
We cannot guarantee that we can get that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Staff recommends, next slide, please. Staff recommends an increase of 11% to $49.23 for the base rate, and $2.50 per 100 cubic feet for the first tier and $4 for the second tier. This keeps the base rate low for the 61% that remained under the 700 cubic feet and under the affordability rate, and places additional costs on the higher consumption users. Do we have any questions?
Okay. Are there any questions in the room for staff regarding the presentation on the Beards Cove water system? Any questions in the room for staff regarding the presentation for Beards Cove water system? Hearing none, is there anybody on Zoom that would like to ask a question of staff regarding their presentation for the Beards Cove water system? If so, please raise your hand or unmute yourself, say your name, and I'll call on you. Anybody in Zoom regarding Beards Cove presentation? Hearing none? Next.
Perfect. Next, we move to the Russellwood sewer utility. This utility has 156 customers of 167 lots and is at 93% of capacity. The beginning fund of this Russellwood fund was 22,000. We divided it between water and sewer and came up with 11,000 as their beginning balance. They have an operating budget of just over $500,000 a year and a 10-year capital plan of just over $500,000. Next.
That beginning fund balance, that's including though the monies we were putting in, right? Yeah, so each year we've been putting in, about 80,000, a few years back, we put in 300,000.
That's the beginning, yeah. That was,
$62,000 per year is transferred from real estate excise tax to cover the debt payment for Russellwood.
yeah.
And plus,
So that is not charged to the customers,
Yeah.
that's the county allocating funds to pay for that.
but plus we've also put funds in every year to keep it solvent.
Yep. Over the next 10 years, the average annual expenditures are anticipated to be more than $470,000. The equitable rate for Russellwood customers would be $251 per month. With 93% of the community connected to the sewer, there's little opportunity to spread these costs over a larger community base. There's no economy of scale. Next. Richard with Capital.
You know, there's another system, this one's 50-plus years old. In the early 80s, it expanded, basically doubled its size by adding another package plant part to it. And the entire thing was pretty much rebuilt in 2008. That being said, that was 16 years ago. It's still, I mean, that treatment plant functions well. It really does. It's over the last 5 years, we've had 97% removal of all BOD, it's the organic strength, and 98% of all suspended solids. So I mean, that it functions as intended. But not to say, and it's a simple plant, so that explains why we don't have a lot to replace, but there are things you have to do. Again, this is another one. We have not kept up on plans, like what are you gonna do for the next 10 years? What are you gonna do for the next 20? So that's happening, it's scheduled to happen 25, 26. And as well as, they also have old DO probes, dissolved oxygen probes. And that really is, I know that is like one of the most important process numbers for wastewater treatment there is. And so that's, I'm a kind of a hard one on that. I need to know that that's a good deal. And as well as upgrading their process control components, and that's the SCADA system, basically, and the historian and all of that. All of that stuff has just been kind of, it's just old and it's time. Other than that, you've got 3 pump stations there. They have been recently rebuilt over the last few years, but you have to look forward and know that you're gonna have to deal with them again. These aren't like, these are very, very small pump stations, and they have a lot less life expectancy than, say, Lift Station 1 in Belfair, which is designed to, you know, it's just a different cat. It has the pumps in it are designed to last 20, 30 years, not 10 to 15. But that's basically all we have on capital improvements, except for you get to 2035. It'll be at least 10 years out. We'll want to freshen up our facility plan. That's standard practice. And what I'm considering possibly an upgrade for that area is odor control. I mean, it is tight around there. If you go there, I mean, I don't know. I don't sense much odor, but I don't have the greatest sense of smell either. Beyond that, what we also have coming that I did not have time to add on to this is we're we're getting a new permit, and part of that permit is gonna have us do a nutrient study out in the receiving waters, a receiving water study, and that's a cost I don't have yet defined. And also our outfall, the manifold is separated from the pipe out in the bottom of the sound, and so I'll have to get that repaired, but we can't design and fix it until we know what the boundaries of our mixing area is gonna be. And so I've got to perform the study just to find that out. But that is not reflected on this capital program.
Slide 32. Staff looked again at the affordability rate. We had an all-in in the system of 251. We have an affordability rate of 110.54, and our current rate is 118.15. So our current rate is 118.15. Next. As you can see, at the 118.15 rate, which is the current rate, revenues are not covering operating expenses. That's going to be the blue bar. You can see it just trailing right under. We're not covering operating expenses, and we have no reserve for capital costs or unexpected maintenance repairs. Next. Staff proposed scenario number 1, increasing the Russellwood sewer rate to $126.30. This was the increase of 6.9%. This included the county funds of nearly $70,000 to cover debt obligations. We've got grant funds coming in right now of about $83,000, and we have more than $120,000 still needed to meet operating expenses and to build a reserve and this assumes that the board and staff will again have to secure or endeavor to secure nearly $500,000 for other funding opportunities for capital expenditures in the future. Next. But again, at 126.30, we're getting a little closer to meeting the operational expenses. Next. Second, we proposed scenario number 2. This rate ensured sufficient cash flow for operating expenses, but not all capital. The board and staff would still need to secure more the $500,000 needed for future capital needs. Next. And this visual shows we finally met at least the operating expenses over the next 10 years. Next. Again, staff and the board are always looking for opportunities to stretch your utility dollars. Grants typically require a match of funds, so this is where having an operating reserve is needed to take advantage of those opportunities. Next. Staff recommends, I apologize.
Just taking a second to update, just questions.
Perfect. Staff recommends the increase of CPIU to the 126.30 because we are above the affordability rate on this fund. The county would fund the debt, would need to consider funding the debt obligation, and additional funding would be needed to build the 20% reserve and to meet operational costs.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Do we have questions for staff regarding the Russellwood sewer system? First from the commission. Anybody in the room have questions for staff regarding the Russellwood sewer system presentation? So raise your hand. Seeing none. Is there anybody in Zoom that has any questions regarding the presentation for the Russellwood sewer system? Please raise your hand or unmute yourself, say your name, and I will call on you. Anybody on Zoom want to have any questions regarding the presentation from staff for Russellwood Sewer? Say your name. Hearing none. Next.
All right. Next, we'll look at the Russellwood water utility. This has an ERU or customer base of 144 and of 167 lots. We're at about 86% of the community currently hooked up to the water utility. The beginning balance of this fund again was $11,000 with a separate operating budget from the sewer of nearly $295,000 with a 10-year capital plan of $270,000.
Right. So some of the important things we're gonna take care of for Russellwood, especially this year, is, well, actually, in like a week and a half, we'll be in there inspecting the reservoir and actually cleaning it out, scrubbing the walls, vacuuming any sediment out of there. And so that'll be cleaned out and ready to go. There's again, this might probably getting old to everybody, but yep, we're gonna be updating the plan. That's another way, but we just don't have any updated plans, so that's why every system is getting that. Pressurization improvements, hopefully, that's an end of that. We've made some adjustments over the weekend. I did not have anybody call. I did have somebody call me last week after our meeting, which I thank you. and we went out and made some adjustments. I got an alarm on my phone, so I know it was still happening, although it had been reduced. We made some more adjustments earlier this week, and so far so good, no more pressure issues. So hopefully that is resolved. I do have one more pressurization pump to purchase and replace. That is totally included within our plan. And then what you see from there on out, this is different than Beards Cove water system. This water system has PVC pipe, so we're pretty good shape there. But the valves, a lot of the valves are from 1971 and 1980 when they had a couple different expansions. So, 50 and 40-year-old valves don't always work great. So we'll be replacing those and also hydrants and stuff like that.
Okay.
All right. Next. Slide 43.
Sorry, it kicked me off for some reason, so I'm trying to get it back on there, but
All right.
there we go.
Slide 43. Most of the drinking water grant and loan programs use the affordability index of 2.5, 2.5% of the median household income. We use a census number from 2021 to establish that the area of Russellwood has a monthly income of about $5,500 a month, which means that their affordability rate for water is about $138.18. The rate to operate this system, all in, was $170.38, and our current rate is $44.32. Next.
It's coming.
It's coming. At the $44.32 rate, we're obviously not meeting our operating costs from our revenue projections here. If we kept the same trajectory, we are meeting less than, or right at 50% of operating costs with this rate. So the next scenario, slide 45, proposed a rate of 170, which was the all-in rate, and had two tiers, one at the base rate of 170, tier 1 at $2.50, and tier 2 at $4 even. This was an increase of obviously over 300% on the rate. The mid-year increase would, if you notice, we would increase it to 170 for the final 6 months of the year, bringing it back down to 135. And that's to establish a reserve fund and to provide for the needed cash flow. Then the reduction in rate back down to 135 and for full year pricing in subsequent years. And that was keeping the 700 cubic foot as the base rate. Next. And we could see here that we're meeting all of our operational costs with this rate. Next, we had the Russellwood water scenario number 2, and it was slightly lower, but stacking a higher tiered rate for the higher consumption water users. A review of the water consumption by customers saw that nearly 73% of the customers use less than the 700 cubic feet. So the majority of it would need to be picked up in the base rate. And there you see we would have funding, sufficient funding for cash flow and operating reserves. The third scenario was reducing the water base rate to $86. It's still at almost a double in the rate, but having a much higher tiered level. It would go from a $2.50 to $25 for the first, for 700 to 1,200. And then anything above 1,200 would be $30 per 100 cubic feet. Next. And we would be still just under what we needed for operating expenses. And we would need to, the scenario, we would still need the 70, we would still have to request about $75,000 a year from alternative sources of funding. Next, we have to build the reserve to be able to have the opportunity to get grants. A lot of the grants have a matching, and if we just don't have the reserves in that fund to to get them. So staff is recommending a little bit different than what we presented in the scenarios. Staff recommends that we increase the rate to the $86, but then keeping the water tier rates for tier 1 and tier 2 consistent with what we were recommending with Beards Cove at $2.50 per 100 cubic feet and $4 per 100 cubic feet over the 1,200 tier.
Does anybody have questions for staff regarding the presentation on Russellwood Water? Commissioner? Commissioner? Yes, please.
Sandy Cunningham again. Why is it you are figuring the water rates in cubic feet instead of gallons?
Our system is built to read it in cubic feet, so it's 7.48 gallons per cubic feet. So
7.4.
Is there any other questions for staff regarding the Russellwood presentation? Yes, sir.
Real quick on the next proposal, or scenario number 4.
Yes.
Which is starting at 86 and then continuing up from there per year, every other year.
Yep.
And then the tier 1 to tier 2 at $2.50 per cubic foot.
Per 100 cubic feet.
Per 100. But not the 25.
Correct.
So sliding scale, you use it, you pay for it.
Yep, yep, it's so that it incentivizes customers for conservation, but also the higher users put an excess toll on the system, and so then we'd be collecting excess fees for that.
Correct. Much more
equitable. Yep.
Thank you.
There's also some concern about some individuals, some seniors that maybe this would be a big challenge for them to afford an additional cost. So
yep.
Stephanie did look into individuals that currently in the area qualify for the senior exemption on property tax. And
Yep, at Russellwood, we had 8. At North Bay, Case Inlet, we had 60, and Beards Cove, we had 34. And that was just doing a cross-check between our customer base and the assessor's list for the property tax senior exemption.
Okay. I have a question in the back. Please say your name for the record. Where are you from?
Dan Burdick.
Hi, Dan.
How you doing, Randy? I pulled the data from in cubic feet from our meter, and there were a couple of anomalies. For 1 month when it should have been, it was September, should have been average, I think September was the month, it doubled. And so clearly there was some anomalous reading. Is there some method of appeal and built into your process, or is there periodically gonna be a large bill popping through the system? I mean, how are you gonna manage?
Or can we build it in?
Yep, yep, and so we're looking at proposing some policies and procedures to the board on what happens if we have a leak on these tiered systems, or if we need to come out and do a reread on your system. So we're building that into the policies and procedures when we go into this tiered system.
Ours went from 0 some months to, I think 12 or 1,600.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and it could have been that the meter was finally read, but that was why we would send somebody out to do a double check on your meter.
okay.
To kind of troubleshoot it.
So, just information that was the data.
Mhm.
Because that's gonna cause some reaction.
Yep.
And it has to be filtered somehow in the system.
Yep, we have reports that we run with the meter system. There's a list of reports that we run ahead of time before we import them.
Is there gonna be some kind of a information that's put out in some format so that, you know where to look, so that you can do some monitoring from home on some database to see
We're going to send out some mailers shortly with your history, and once maybe the rates are determined, or we've got a ballpark, it'll take what your rates, what your reads were last year, and kind of give you a ballpark idea of what your bill would have been if it was implemented with these rates, and we plan on sending that out to everyone.
And that'll be in the next month?
I would imagine so.
Prior to when, I mean, there's a process obviously here, and there's gonna be a decision made eventually. So in order to be able to affect the outcome, there has to be some lead time away from that decision for information.
And that'll be up to the commission when we
Yeah.
decide here, if we decide table, which I think is what's gonna happen, but she can't actually answer that one.
That was just comment for the meeting.
Yeah, so,
Thank you.
are there any other, yes?
If I could just do real quickie on the meter read question. So there is one type of metering system where you can have an actual live, you can use your phone and what's my meter doing right now? We don't have that type of reading and reporting capability. What we do have is, it's basically a wand that goes through the community and then captures what the read is at that
It's like an
time.
RFID.
Exactly, and then that is what is uploaded. And what Stephanie's describing is, once that is uploaded into our system, which will happen on a monthly basis, then we do a quick review to make sure, does this make sense? Is this consistent with prior reads, or is there something unusual about a customer's read? If that's the case, we can send out one of our operators to reread again or make sure that there isn't a leak before we actually generate a bill. So that's our first step, like do a QA/QC before the bill is actually generated. And then if everything seems to be okay and the bill's generated and you do discover you've got a leak, for example, one of the things that we would ask commissioners to consider is if a customer were to make a repair of that leak, demonstrate it, show us the bill, we've got her done, then you'd get a one-time forgiveness basically for that month. So that's an example of the policies and procedures that Stephanie was describing.
And we'll look at that when those come forward.
Yeah.
For now, is there any other questions regarding the presentation? Yes?
Real quick, as far as the recommendations that the experts have given you, they've got recommendation for the sewer, recommendation for the water. And is that put to a vote by the public, or
No.
what is the procedure from there?
After this is done, the commission discusses it, they make motions or decides not to, decides to table it, looks further. There's a lot of different options that come up, but yeah, it's all done legislatively. Okay, any other questions for staff regarding the presentation on the Russellwood water? Seeing none inside, anybody on Zoom land have a question for staff regarding the presentation on Russellwood water? Raise your hand or unmute yourself and say your name. I always say it twice for Zoom because it takes a minute to get to their computer to click off. Anybody that would like to ask any questions to staff regarding the presentation for Russellwood water, please unmute yourself and say your name now. Hearing none? You have any further presentation that you want to bring forward? Okay. Commissioners, any last questions before I close and move to public testimony? Okay, we will close the presentation and we will move to public testimony. Before we go forward with that, I want to ask the commission a question. You want them to come up randomly, or do you want to do one system at a time?
Oh, randomly is fine.
Okay.
However they wanna do it.
So with that, is there anybody who would like to speak now to the commission and testify? Now's your opportunity to talk to us and actually give us your opinions, what you think, what you'd like, and perhaps how you'd like to see it done. I just remind everybody that if you have any issues, if you're angry, I don't see anybody angry today, but if so, please direct it to the chair. It's not meant for everybody else, and please don't turn around and look at the staff. I'm your piñata. So with that being said, is there anybody, please, Jeff, we'll ask you to come forward, say your name and perhaps where you're from.
Jeff Carey, Belfair. A couple things. You got extensive history, as you and everybody knows, with the Allen Sewer for about almost now a quarter century, one way or another. First of all, with this hearing, it would be nice if those reports, this slide presentation, was made available. There was things put in the hearing for the meeting, but none of that was there. So it's a little hard to comment on the things that were being always presented, because I find when I look at some things, I come up with some weird angles, as you've known over the years, about how I look at things and see where we actually are coming out. Overall, my biggest concern, one of my bigger concerns, is that we don't have capital facilities plans. I hear we're going to do them. I know we need them, like for the Planning Advisory Committee, for work we do there. We need them for us, the public. The public right now is, from my vantage point, and I'm more involved with it than the average public, I think, is we're flying blind to what's happening. We don't know what's coming down the path. And when I hear the numbers, you know, I start calculating a little bit, not exact in any way, shape, or form, but I'm concerned, and I'm one of those people that if we got to make sure we have the reserves to make sure we take care of the system, not just today, but tomorrow, in 10 and 20 years, and have a plan. Because we need to see where these rates are going and be able to plan and, you know, to work that in. So I guess what I'm saying is, in the capital facilities plan, I see it as a two-tier approach. I think that we need, for lack of a better word, an annual executive summary where we are, which is more like kind of what was covered today, and then a more comprehensive plan going forward. And we need to model and forecast these costs, because nobody knows where they're going to be 5, 10 years out. Just as a side note, like this fish barrier thing that came up over on Victor Highway thing, do we have 3 of those coming up with Belfair, the 3 passages there? A question. Because you have, that State Highway has 3 projects on Highway 3 from basically Seabeck's Pizza to just to the 106. So there's 3 projects there, and you know, I don't hear anybody talk about that, and this like came out of nowhere for the Allen Sewer. Some of the ideas, like the area of CPI, I don't think that CPI is important, but I don't think that's where it's at least, and I'll speak mainly to the North Bay Case Inlet Sewer System. We have to cover our costs. If they're extremely high, I feel that the county needs to participate a little bit with that with REIT if they get extremely high, because of whatever costs. But generally, it's not the CPI keeping track of that, it's keeping track of your expenses to support this system. The concept of water consumption, I was around just in my earlier years in Seattle when that came into effect. For people that, you know, garden, have lawns, what have you, it always gets skewed. In other words, you'd have a high sewer bill in the middle of summer. So I don't, at least with, you know, the case, North Bay Case Inlet System, I don't believe that's a feasible approach. Here, I guess, so I mentioned the website, I've mentioned the, oh yes, another thing. In looking at some of the plans, to me there's not a clear policy, or at least what's been taken to date, and I think I've testified to this in the past, is when a developer pays for extensions and when the county pays for extensions. And I maintain that it seems like Belfair's put on a different schedule than Allen. In Allen, pretty much anybody that's done development, me included, we've paid to extend. In Belfair, it seems to be a different rule. And it appears it's continuing that with other projects that are in line, at least from what's been presented. Now, there may be more detail, and I'm not privy to it, that's fine. You know, we can clear that up later, but it just, there don't seem to be equitably run the same way as far as extensions, when developers extend or when the county extends. There doesn't seem to be a balanced rule. More detail, and I'm one of those kind of guys, we can go into the nth detail.
with these sewers, and there's no problem with that. I do agree for the general public, you need to be able to collapse it up and see the summary, but then sometimes you have to dive into detail. What I'm concerned about is now taking a different tack and saying if the rates have to go up, they have to go up. But then when you look at our budgets, except for this year where the expenditures, budgeted for 2.8 million, round numbers, the last 3 or 4 years have been fairly flat. The revenues been fairly flat, maybe just up a little bit. What my point is that if you look at it and then you look at the cash balance each year of the fund, it doesn't look like you need to increase the rates. I don't think that's accurate because I think we have costs coming up in updating capital facilities, but that's the appearance it gives when you look at the budgets. So for example, I looked at things, there's a lot of things in the expense that seem to be flat or even in some cases going down, like the solid waste disposal, or the solids disposal. That number went down from last year as far as the budget. But yet, like in the risk pool insurance, that's like double what it was last year. And see, to me, if you had an executive summary of the system, these exceptions would be called out in it, and in a couple minutes, anybody could read it and know where the heck we are in things. I don't personally know where we are in these things. All I know is that 5 years ago it was 22K, then last year it was in the 30s, I believe, 38, and this year it's 75. That's not doesn't sound good in my mind. What else? Again, this is detail, but it's like I'm concerned, like, for example, the ER and R vehicles were down, which is great. From, we're 57% of what it was in 2019, which is great. But is that sustainable, or is, what's going on? And I'm not looking at all the nitty-gritties. I'm taking the top 10 or 15 numbers of your budget and saying, okay, what's happening? And again, I'm concerned that we're not really take care of the future correctly. And this doesn't go, it's nothing with the current staff, but this system, North Bay Case Inlet, has gone through these different waves where I remember in 2004 sitting with one of the commissioners and asking for the Green Bar report because it just didn't match up. And as an example, what we later found out when I went through every category of what ran that system is that the monies that were collected for the connection fees basically got used for M&O, maintenance and operation. And so we had $2 million and some sitting there as a reserve, gone, because nobody would look at the numbers or address it. So I guess I'm saying I'm concerned about these different factors because we've been down this road before in different things, and with the system, and I just don't. History has a tendency to repeat itself from time to time, and it sounds like we have a lot of costs coming in the future, and I'm not sure they're worked in. One last point, and I'll lobby it for again. We, at least by the budgets, we don't have a reserve. You may have cash on hand, but you don't have something set aside as reserve, for capital facilities. There's none. And I think it would make it easier to track in the budget if you take that money once it's coming in, from the connection fees and put it there and keep it there until you actually have the capital facilities need. With that, there's always more detail in sewer, but I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else who would like to testify right now? Please raise your hand. I'll call on you. Please come forward, say your name and perhaps where you're from.
Yeah, Dave Engman from Lakeland up in Allen. Well, I would, in the strongest means, recommend you commissioners look at getting off the CPI thing. It's a failed thought process, in my opinion. I would go with the usage like Kitsap County does, like a lot of the areas in our jurisdiction. Philanthropy at a county level is a slippery slope, because you're talking about aiding those people that can't pay their water bill. Well, we do the same thing for electricity, you know, different utilities. But we find those, some of those people, electrically, they'll leave the lights on 24/7 because they don't have to pay the bill. So granting an exemption might be something you take a little caution with. Other than that, appreciate you asking for public opinion, and hopefully it's not a once-in-a-lifetime event.
It's not, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a, yes, please, come forward. And for those on Zoom, we'll get to you in a minute.
Sandy Cunningham.
Hi, Sandy.
I wanted to say, removing the rate from the consumer price index was really a boon, and appreciate that. And I'm with him. I don't think it should be the basis for our rates. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to testify in this room? One more time, is there anybody in the room who would like to testify regarding this issue to the commission and the public? Hearing none, I'm gonna go to Zoom. Is there anybody on Zoom who would like to testify in this? I'm gonna go ahead and start with Ken Van Buskirk. If you don't mind though, please say your name on your own also, and where you're from for the record.
Hi, Ken Van Buskirk from Belfair. Commissioners, I basically just want to say that we've got households that are using way more than single-family residential units. So it's really an inequity in how we're determining the rates. So if you could find some way to correct that or adjust it, that would be beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. In Zoom land, if there's somebody else, please raise your hand. If you don't know how to raise your hand, please unmute yourself, say your name, and I will call on you. If you'd like to testify in this hearing regarding the utilities and utility rates on Zoom, please unmute yourself, say your name, and I will call on you. Hearing none, one more time in the room, anybody? Then I'm going to close public testimony and move to commissioner deliberations. Who wants to start?
I'll start. So I want to thank everyone that's participated in all the workshops, and for coming here, you know, even via Zoom or in the room personally. Your comments are helping me come to a decision. So I want to thank you all for that. Do you want a motion, or do you want to just continue the discussion for a bit?
For the moment, we'll go ahead and give opportunity to discuss.
Okay.
Let's see.
Sure. So definitely really appreciate the feedback, not just today, but over the past few weeks. I think that's been really helpful. And I appreciate staff working hard to put together and then refine these presentations over the past several weeks so that we're giving you the information that you both need and want. I think it's been really informative. And so one of the things that I think that I'm hearing that we need to think about how to incorporate too is an annual report for each of our utilities. I think there's an opportunity for us to report out on the status of each utility to the customers who support it and utilize it. And so it's something that I think we should look hard at doing. And I do think that in particular for our water customers, if we're going to the tiered approach, which I think we should, you know, we might have a little bit more runway to implement that so everybody on those systems can see what their usage is and adjust accordingly or not adjust accordingly, as it were, based on their consumption and willingness to pay for that consumption beyond the base rate. Super sensitive to these costs for people in their everyday lives and what it means for their household budgets. we do have a fiduciary responsibility to maintain and operate these systems and do so in a financially responsible way for the entire county. But it's not lost on me that if we're here talking about what it costs to operate these, utilities, you're also hearing that from other people that you pay bills to on a monthly basis, and so your power, your your grocery bill and all those things are also impacted based on how high the costs are for things right now, and so we're not immune to that here at the commission as well, and so we want to be mindful of that, but at the same time balance those needs of current operations with future needs on the system in order to plan ahead. We do have an opportunity, Jeff, your comments were well taken about the capital facilities planning side and, looking down the pike further. And I think that's what Richard's talking about when he's saying we have to update our general sewer plans. And we're in that process right now so that we do have a better, more accurate, clearer snapshot, not just for us as the decision makers, but for the customers and the community broadly speaking as well, so they know what to expect down the road. And so the example of the Victor relocation project is a good one. It shows a lack of coordination and communication between DOT and the other local utility providers who are impacted by this. I've had a number of conversations with both of our PUDs about how we get the state to work with us a little bit better and pay for those relocations or incorporate that into their project ahead of time. And so I think we have some interest in working on that long-term as well, so that we know that these culvert projects and other road projects are going to be an issue long-term. And so how do we get that cooperation between us and DOT to plan for that? And so I think now that we know what the impact is in a project like this is kind of point forward. How do we make sure we're not we're not surprised by our friends at the state level again? So I think staff made some really reasonable, logical recommendations for us to consider today. I would be okay if we gave ourselves a little bit more time to digest it and continue this hearing to May 7th. I'd be open to that, and then set some date forward from then for these rates to be implemented. And so I'd be open to that. And I want to also agree that CPI isn't the best way to budget for utility rates, and it's not workable. It's great when you have CPI at 1%. But over the past couple of years, when we were pushing double digits, that's a big red flag to us when we're setting our budgets. As I mentioned, you all feel it in other parts of your household budget as well. So yeah, CPI, we want to move away from that, and I think this gets us on a better path forward and ultimately puts the utilities in a better position.
I went to each and every one of the forums. I was there. There was a lot of people that definitely understood what was going on, but there was a lot of them that were very angry, and for many different reasons. But quite often, they didn't understand. They didn't like to hear that, as they're thinking they're paying way more than their share, to find out that, I'll use Russellwood for example, that their system, that every year they're running $80,000 backwards. And if you think about it and you break it down to 145 people, 144, they're paying $528 a year. Well, the county's kicking in $555 a year. And now when the county kicks in the money like that, you have to understand it comes from somewhere. If it comes from REIT, real estate excise tax, a perfect example, that means that money's not spent on a park or some facility or something that may be needed. So the whole county is carrying that and holding that up. The same thing went with the welfare system and all. So when we go to explain that, we understand that there was a past. Welfare was a great example. When that was created, none of us were here. None of us. When North Bay, I can assure you, none of us. And so many of the other ones, we had nothing to do with. Some of these other systems weren't even ours. They came to us. Beards Cove was a failed system. They actually completely failed so bad that when several of them went around the county, they tried to give them away, and PUD would not take Beards Cove. They just wouldn't. Russellwood is another example where we end up with something that somebody else had created. It failed, but we couldn't let the people down. So when having all this extra money going out, we're trying to keep everybody safe. But we have to understand that other utilities charge a lot more money, and being comfortable is one thing, but we're almost taking from somebody else to get it to you. When you're looking at a PUD rate that might be $139, and you're looking at 44 for us, we're not doing the right thing for our utility, as well as just trying to provide for other things that the counties need, because there is no vacuum here. Every dollar counts. I want to say that I agree with the commission that I'm not a fan of the CPI, at least one commissioner, I think we all are gonna agree on that. We ran into that wall, that brick wall. It wasn't a speed bump, it was a brick wall. We went from little tiny increments to almost 10% with one, and it shook us up. And, you know, it was even a little contentious, so we're trying to figure out how to do it, but we knew we had to do something. And that's what happened with that. But you also gotta remember, if you don't pay today, you have to pay tomorrow. There's no way, it keeps growing, keeps happening. You have risks, as you see on some of these things, $10 million coming up in so many years. We can't guarantee that we're gonna be able to get that money from the legislature. That means it has to come from somewhere. If it comes from us, it has to come from somebody else, if we can even do it or pull it off. I found that a little more local connection is a good thing. Going out there to Russellwood, we found there was some serious issues there that I thought had already been fixed, and so did our manager of the system. But as we're there, we're finding out there are these issues, and he's going out immediately. And so we've had a discussion about going out there more often so they can have a direct line to come in and talk. So that was a good thing that came out of this. Even though some people were angry, one even storming out, it was beneficial for everybody else to get there. Something our staff is quite a few times at those meetings, everybody accused us of already having our minds made up and we were shoving it down their throat. As you can tell, that's not what it was, not even close. Matter of fact, even just before this on Friday, I have staff talking to me about some of the things that were mentioned at other locations, such as one way to take care of somebody on the water systems that maybe just has the one bedroom or one bath, a retired person, might be to do what PUD does and have a lower entry capacity of 400 gallons. Well, you gotta understand, every time we do that to our staff, they have to go and sharpen their pencils and do all the work to figure that out. But they did, and they've been looking at all these options. So I wanna give them great credit for all that, and to show and understand that, again, it was a perfect example of our minds were not made up, we were not shoving, we were trying to get the information out to you and from you. So again, I wanna thank everybody for their participation in that. And, you know, if we're gonna fix things, there's an old saying that I love, the very first tool for fixing a problem is to be there. So we went out to the public, we were there, and we will continue to do stuff like that. So with that, thank everybody for their time and coming in, and now I'm gonna leave it to the commission to see where they would like to go with the motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we continue the utility, or the changes to Mason County Code, Chapter 13, Utilities and Minor Updates to Chapter 2, 3, and 17 until May 7th at 9:15 a.m., at which point I would be open to additional public comment.
That was gonna be my next question. I thank you for saying that. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to table this hearing till May 7th, at which time the public will have another opportunity to comment. So we'll take your comment at that time if you have something else, or in the meantime, if you find things you need, please contact staff. But with that, there's a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion?
Just again, thanks to staff, and then just to ask that if you could post the presentation that you gave today on the website or on social media or wherever, all of the above, probably be helpful in the next 2 weeks as well.
Yeah, thanks to staff. You guys are the SMEs, and without us, without you, we couldn't make the best decisions for the county. So I want to send my appreciation to all of you.
Same here, and that includes all you that do the extra work and get into every single number. If you've ever worked with Jeff, you'll find out that's how he does it. And I mean that with all honor and respect, because I enjoy working with him. He definitely knows the underbelly of everything that we're doing. So with that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries, and we will continue this hearing for May 7th with public testimony. Next up, I'm just gonna run it out. We have commissioner calendars. Last week, elected officials, directors, Belfair, North Bay Sewer Rate forums, Olympia Regional Clean Air Authority, Finance Committee, Mason County IDS, swearing in of Michael Curtin for the Port of Allen Rotary meetings. Skokomish Tribe, I met with them regarding some different issues. We have briefings, Mason Transit Authority Board, regular Olympic Regional Clean Air Authority Board. I met with the Rockwood community regards to their sewer and regards to their water. Fire District 4 invited me out to say hi. North Mason Chamber of Commerce meeting, citizens meeting with me regularly. Canvassing Board for training. We had a men's breakfast up in North Mason, which I want to take 1 second to explain. Please, if you are grieving and you've lost a loved one, there's a women's group up there and a men's group up there where they will sit and we can all talk and you can all share and they will try to help you through it. But on top of that, that breakfast was fantastic. It really was. Biscuits and gravy with more sausage you can imagine. Met with the folks from the racetrack in Kitsap County and the Peninsula Regional Transportation Organization. Coming up, we have short-term. Are we going to be doing that? I have a feeling.
I was going to say, I think we
He left. Yeah.
Staff has to leave at 11:30.
Okay, and I have another meeting at 11:30. Okay, so maybe not the short term. Peninsula Regional Transportation Funding arm will be meeting. Finance Committee, citizens with Kel at 3 o'clock. I hope that's still on. North Mason Facilities, Law Library, Rotary, Cemetery Board meeting, Peninsula Regional Transportation Organization, regular meeting, Canvassing Board, and the Canvassing Board certification. McClendon's is having their breakfast. Please come out. It's one of the best things to do. You get more hugs there. I see people I haven't seen in 30 years when we go to that. Port Allen meeting and law enforcement and firefighters brings us back and we'll start over again. Sorry, you're up. I'm still taking a breath off of that one.
All right, well, last week we had a contractors conference at ProBuild, and it was at 5:30 in the morning, but it was amazing. It was pretty darn awesome to be able to talk to the contractors and get questions answered. Our staff did an amazing job. Again, thank you, Kel, and Loretta, and everybody that pitched in. The breakfast was amazing too. Thank you, Monica.
Josh Luck did a great job.
Yes, he did. And then took a drive out with Mark and one of our sheriff's office members to the puppy mill. That was a tough one, but had to do it so that we could make sure that we were doing what we needed to as we move forward. Have a finance committee meeting later on, call with Nicole with Area Agency on Aging. Tonight, Southside Women's Leaders, there's a Southside school is putting on a women's leaders presentation, so I'll be going to that. SWAC meeting tomorrow, Turning Point Board meeting, Lincoln Day planning meeting. Don't forget to pay your property taxes. Public Works Board Executive Committee meeting, Pack Mountain preliminary budget adoption meeting. Football draft, now that's gonna be fun. The sheriff's breakfast on Friday, grandson is in a play on Friday night, and we have multiple soccer games and baseball games and stuff coming on also. Gateway Christian Fellowship is hosting a Celebrate Recovery open house. So this is from 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. and there will be a ton of different resources there, so if anybody knows anybody, send them to Gateway because the resources will be there to help people. My mom's birthday is on Monday. We have a briefing in Wasack Virtual Assembly. Then I head out to Bellingham for a Public Works Board. They say it's a retreat. How can they say it's a retreat? Because you're there in meetings all day long, but that's fun. So I'll be there from Wednesday through Thursday. And then there's a Lake Whatcom water ribbon cutting. Great Bend is having their music event on Saturday the 4th. Encourage folks to attend that one. Back for briefings on Monday, Wasack Virtual Assembly, and then our commission meeting. And I might be missing something, but I'm hoping not.
Okay. Finance Committee meeting later this afternoon, as well as a meeting with Central Mason Fire Commissioner Pete Buckus, Housing and Behavioral Health Advisory Board, MACECOM labor negotiations, as well as a meeting with Chief Bakken and Chief Rudolph from North Mason Fire and South Mason Fire. Also, meeting with Jeff Farrington from Skydive Capelson, Allison Smith from Olympic College, as well as the Sheriff's Breakfast. Mason County Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Quarterly Meeting, back for briefings. Then have a sit down with Jeff Slakey, and then a meeting with representatives from the United States Department of Labor to talk about homeless veteran workforce development issues. MASCOM supervisors meeting, and Martha Reed chili cook-off event on the 4th, and back for briefings on May 6th, as well as my bi-weekly check-in with BHASO staff, and State Opioid Settlement Fund dashboard meeting, update on statewide progress for our next commission meeting on the 7th.
All I heard was chili cook-off.
I know.
And I will probably be at that also.
I might, even though I didn't know, but I might show up just because I'll eat it.
I mean,
Yeah,
hard to
it's
say.
chili.
It's chilly.
I will entertain a motion.
Move we adjourn.
I'll second.
It has moved the second we adjourn. Hearing no objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. See you, I have